Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UPNradio.com.
I like that, Kurt. It's by David Bowie.
Yeah, David Bowie.
What's the name of it?
Sorrow.
Thank you for putting that up.
No problem.
All right, everybody. Thank you today for being here with us. All right, another edition of Kobylt and Friends. Thanks for being here. A very appropriate song by David Bowie, Sorrow.
Yeah.
Considering what's been going on in Europe, it's just so sad. On the line, we're just going to go straight to him. We've got Dan Lothian, former White House correspondent with CNN, very, very dear friend, one of my closest, and also the co-founder of the website heartbeings.com. So make sure. There you go.
Thank you very much. Good to be here, as always.
You know, Dan, I have to tell you, every time you come, that studio audience just keeps growing and growing. You can hear from
It
the
is.
applause.
They're happy to have me here.
Yeah, it's wonderful. But I have to tell you, this just crossed the AP wire that, and Fox News read this as well, that ISIS-trained terrorists, over 400 of them, have just been let loose across Europe and been told to attack. I don't want to spread any bad rumor, but that's been on AP. That's been just reported on Fox. And that's scary based on what's been going on in Belgium and what just happened yesterday, which is horrific and sad enough, what went on in Paris and everywhere else. What does this mean? What is going on, Dan?
Well, I mean, it is, first of all, condolences to all the people of
Belgium
and just the horrific attack that went after innocent people. But I think what it shows, it's the continued difficulty of trying to go after ISIS, which you have these pockets of individuals, smaller groups who can strike at any time in any neighborhood, and it is difficult to know exactly where it's coming from. And I think that intelligence obviously is a big issue here.
We're behind it instead of in step with it or in front of it. We're way behind it.
Yeah, we're way behind it, and I've done a little bit of reporting on this several months ago for PBS, where we were looking into how ISIS has been recruiting young people, even from here in the suburbs of America, enticing them in all kinds of ways to join in the fight. And it is troubling, it is disturbing, but really there has to be a stepped up effort in infiltrating and getting good intelligence to find out where and when these attacks are being planned, and then going after the leadership, which is scattered in so many different places. A
lot of people say we've got to go after their social media and their computers and all that and their cell phones. But are they doing almost like mob style, where they're meeting in private and going on walks down the street in a sidewalk to the point where maybe we can't get in front of them and figure out what's going on? Because these groups are big.
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. I mean, everything that I've heard from experts is that they are using social media and to not only recruit, but to get their message out when it's time to activate. But they're certainly always using other techniques as well and inventing new ways of communicating with their troops on the ground to carry out these horrific attacks. But I still go back to the fact that the only way to really make progress is for this concerted effort to infiltrate, to get good intelligence, because if not, then you're constantly playing catch-up. There's something that happens in Paris, there's something that happens in Belgium, or the next attack that will take place, and unless we can get in front of that and find and arrest some key members who then might also be able to give us some of this information, and that's been happening as well, where key players are being arrested and then divulging other information. Without that, I think we're flying blind.
I don't really know if they're divulging much. I think they're divulging what they were told to divulge, knowing that at one point or another they may be getting caught, and then in which case,
right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But at the same time, too, anytime you pick someone up, then you have a lot of evidence, right?
Yeah.
You can start tracking that person's email traffic or even phone conversations. There's so much that you can do once you start picking people up that can potentially lead you to other clues that can then lead you to somebody else and perhaps uncover some big plan that they might be hatching. So this sort of human intelligence, I think, is important in this fight.
Well, when I heard this being reported today, that there are apparently or allegedly 400 plus terrorists on the loose looking to do damage, severe damage over in Europe, I thought, why did we learn about this today? And why didn't we know about this a month ago and put a stop to it? Do you see what I mean? We always
Right.
seem to be behind this sort of a thing. So
That's true. And again, is this real information?
Exactly.
We don't know. I mean, sometimes we know that terrorists, I mean, that their main goal beyond, whatever ideological issue that they're pushing is to
Throw us off.
to disrupt, right? To throw
Right.
us off and to disrupt our lives. And I think that to the extent that they can get information out that says that, they have, 700 people running around ready to carry out attacks, even if they don't do anything, they have impacted people, certainly psychologically, and even more than that, perhaps. So, it's one of those you have to certainly check it out. It has to be followed up.
Absolutely.
Law enforcement has to be sort of step it up in times like these as well. But you really don't know whether this is something they're using as a tool or they really do plan to carry something out.
Okay, so let's go to the elections. Who do you think would better handle something like this? Would it be Hillary or would it be Trump? I mean, Trump just wants to go in there and bomb everybody, and then Hillary
Well,
would be the
look,
diplomat.
yeah.
With
If you talk to if you talk to Trump supporters, they'll say, he's the one. He's not going to take crap from anybody. He's going to go in there. He's going to clean them out, or at
Right.
least they'll think that he'll do something like that, and so they'll stop doing whatever they're doing or planning. That's what the Trump supporters will tell you. Hillary Clinton supporters will tell you she's the only one with real experience. From everything from just being in and around the White House and being at the State Department, that she's the one who can keep America safe. But, I think it's up to sort of individual voters as to whom they like and whom they believe.
two very different approaches. I mean, as Trump would say,
Yeah.
I'm going to bomb the hell out of them. But, and then Hillary's approach would clearly not be that way. But, these folks have been growing and multiplying under an administration that has been more of an administration to negotiate. Is it possible that perhaps Trump's way of, I'm going to bomb the hell out of them, which unfortunately would take out a lot of innocent people, is that maybe what's needed? I don't know. I'm asking you.
Look, and I don't know. Sometimes you do want someone with a fresh, new, different, some would think, way out there approach in order to provide the proper solution. And that we've seen that happen sometimes in business, where someone who's radically different in terms of the way that they operate come in, use this different approach, and are able to turn things around. So that's always a possibility as well. But oftentimes what we've seen in the past, at least, and believe me, this election cycle is completely different from anything I've ever witnessed. But in the past, what we've seen is that people tend, during these kinds of crisis situations, they tend to gravitate to people with experience. And I know that this is one of those election cycles where experience really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm not
But people
sure in
tend
this
to take
case.
a certain,
Yeah, go
they
ahead.
tended to be a little comforted by the fact that, oh my, this person has been tested. Maybe they didn't, turn out the way we thought they would, but they've been tested. So that tends to benefit the person with experience. But again, this is a different election.
Right. Either that, or they're just going to say, you know what, we've been going with the guys who have the experience, and right now we just want to go with the guy who's just going to obliterate them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah,
look at
right.
what's going on in the
Absolutely.
polls. Look how the people were lining up in Arizona to vote. I mean, these folks are really, there's so much interest this year because on the folks, even though Sanders isn't going to win, there's so much interest because he's brought so many other young people to the table. And Trump, of course, he's bringing his entire set of followers. So, it's interesting what will happen 1 year from now. Who's going to be in that seat and the approach they're going to take to something like this, because ISIS is only multiplying. I'm amazed, though, in Belgium, it was well known that they were in those neighborhoods, and no one ever really went in there to infiltrate. Don't you find that interesting?
That is quite interesting. If that in fact is what happened. And
Yeah.
I have a friend who is a security expert, national security expert, and he goes in and helps companies that want to sort of be prepared ahead of anything happening. And he was talking about how it's important to not only tell the public to look out for things, to see things, but to act on them. And so many times when things happen, you find out after the fact that a lot of people knew a lot of things and had a lot of suspicions, but were fearful of coming forward because no one wants to be wrong. No one wants to point the finger at someone and potentially get their name dragged into it, or even worse, and then turn out to be completely wrong, that they were looking at it in a different way, maybe through eyes that were marred by, experience or by, sort
Their
of
own personal biases.
biases.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's always the problem. But, as he pointed out to me, if you really do feel that something is going on, that something's being planned, think about how you'll feel if, in fact, you didn't say something and something happened. And
Good
that
point.
should drive you to tell someone, tell law enforcement, and then push law enforcement to act on that information if they don't.
With Obama in Cuba, I know you just recently went to Cuba, and we're headed there next week, which is so interesting. How do you think he handled himself? I thought that the speech that he gave in the theater with Castro there was brilliant. I believe it was heard. And I'm actually excited to be going there 1 week after the president. I really am. I'm curious to see how, with the people, if they're even allowed to talk about it, the impact.
It's a real exciting time. I mean, first of all, from personal experience, my father was born in Cuba, so I have a connection that way. And as you pointed out, I did go to Cuba late last year, and it was just amazing to talk with the Cuban people about the hopes and the aspirations of the people there of what this new climate between the U.S. and Cuba will yield for them and for their country. And I think, it was somewhat of a difficult balance for the president. First of all, we just finished talking about the terrorism aspect, and Ted Cruz criticized him for staying on that trip, attending that baseball game, not coming back, or at least going to Belgium to show support by his presence. Frankly, I think that's sort of a bit of a wild shot, but
I agree with that. That would not have been necessary.
Right. I mean, the president can do whatever he needs to do from wherever he is at any time, and that did happen in Belgium, and it's sad. But I think that that was just one of those things that's said during a political year. But there was that balance that the president was trying to strike. That yes, there are issues of human rights. There are a number of issues that need to be addressed. He was walking very gingerly on some of these issues publicly, but from all accounts, privately, there was a lot of pressure being applied. At the same time, though, he wants to herald that this is a new day, and that there are a lot of opportunities for Cuba, certainly a lot of opportunities for American companies. We're seeing that already with some big hoteliers going in there and doing deals with the Cubans. But the one thing that nobody really, certainly the Cubans didn't want to talk about, Raul didn't want to talk about, was the whole, these political prisoners. And we saw Jim Acosta at that press avail pressing him on that, and he got a little prickly. And
he was very uncomfortable with that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that those who are still resisting and saying that the United States should not be getting so cozy with Cuba, that the embargo should not be dropped until that leadership is out and there's real sort of democratic reforms taking place in Cuba. And I think that's the reason why, because there's still so much that's still happening. That's a little bit like the old days in Cuba. That hasn't changed, and I think that's a big concern for many of those folks.
There's a new fight and a much bigger fight than the one that's going on in Cuba. I mean, we need to become allies with so many of these people, because you know that there's just a bigger fight ahead. And I just hope that so many of the countries that we have been in a Cold War with, and we keep at bay, and they keep us as bay, Russia. In this way, we've got to form an alliance with them, because ISIS is going after everybody. This scares me. If this report is in fact correct, that's pretty awful. Then my next thing to say is, then what's happening here? Did they release some here too? And then we're going to be behind that one next. In other words, we need to get ahead of it. So I don't know, Dan. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Look, we're living in an interesting time.
Yeah.
Where there is a lot of fear. There's a lot of concern about the unknown of terrorism, which is trying to disrupt. We're also living during a time, I think, of historic change. And what is happening in Cuba is part of that, where it could create some big opportunities, not only for American companies, but open things up for Cubans who have been under this control of communism for so long. And I think there's just so much, having spent time on the ground there, having seen what they're able to do with basically nothing, how they're able to keep these old cars running by creating their own parts, how they're able to underground create a patchwork of hotels, if you will, put the apartments together so they can have hotels, because that's illegal for private hotels by individuals to own more than one house. You've seen how they've been very ingenious in putting together this underground economy, and it will be interesting to see how that all matures as this relationship also matures between Cuba and the United States. So a time of concern, yes, around the world, a time for everyone to be vigilant, but also a time for us to celebrate some of the good things that are happening.
I love how you always put something in a positive light. You're wonderful, Dan. Dan, thanks for being on. You're going to come back, right, in a couple of weeks when I return from Cuba?
Anytime you want me to be on, I'll be on.
Okay, that's wonderful. I'll talk to you in a couple of weeks, and in the meantime, I'll give you a call when I get off the air. I'll talk to you later. But Dan Lothian, thanks so much for being on. Wow, that was pretty... he is not only just a wonderful guest, he's just a wealth of knowledge. I mean, he's pretty amazing. And right now, I'm actually going to go to my next guest, Genevive Mao. She's a licensed family and individual, right? And
yes,
therapist and psychotherapist. Thanks for being on.
That crowd is just...
How many people are in this studio?
The crowd
audience?
is going wild.
Just take a guess. How many are behind behind Kurt? A couple of hundred?
The crowd's
would you say?
going wild.
At least.
Would
at
you
least
say
a
a
couple
few?
hundred. Yeah. They're excited.
We were originally going to have our show pretty much with Genevieve, and then all of this sad and just awful things were happening over in Europe, and of course we had to lead our show with politically what's going on over there. But you and I were talking about that last night. Genevieve and I are also friends. How do you think this is drumming up a lot of fear in people, parents and people, and just in general? I know that because I work in the news business, I can look at it from many angles. But this in particular is really a little concerning to me, because one never knows where something like this is going to happen and pop up, and I'm almost just bracing. Could it happen here?
I think you're right. I think that this culture of fear that is ISIS' goal is sort of happening right now, and it feels like it's happening far away because it's happening in Europe. But then with this latest news that you're sharing, with letting go of the 400 ISIS militants across Europe, I think one of the biggest issues that you're seeing right now is that, you know what? This is why Donald Trump is doing so well, because he's running on nationalism, and he's running on a concept of fear. And I'm going to bomb them all, and I'm going to build a wall, and I'm going to do all of these things. And he is talking to a culture of very dispossessed people who have lost jobs, who've lost wages, and the American system isn't working for them, and they're blaming the outsiders. And now it's being proven, every couple of months, and these people want to destroy us, and how are we going to do it? And a lot of people are tired of diplomacy because they don't understand it.
Right, but diplomacy is obviously important.
Yes.
But we also have to get ahead of what these guys are doing.
Absolutely.
And diplomacy can only go so far.
That's right.
Bombing people can only go so far. I am not in favor of that personally, but we have to do something. Like, being diplomatic and trying to reason is clearly not working. Being careful and vigilant not to go in to their space is not working. We have to be much smarter at this. We've got drones. We've got ways of doing this. I don't know. I'm not one of these people who would know. But it has to be better than being behind the news as opposed to being in front of what's going on. I also don't think Donald is necessarily the answer to bomb innocent villages where you've got one guy there.
That's right.
Because he's just going to escape in the middle of the night. Meanwhile, you've got a whole street of people who didn't really do anything. It's like coming to my street because there's one bad guy there.
Absolutely.
And then they bomb my street. And meanwhile, that guy's probably gone. There just has to be a better way.
I think there does, and I think that there's a lot of talk right now about the dangers of ISIS being able to communicate with each other off the grid in ways that we're not even aware of right now, and those are the reasons why I think we're behind. And I think that that's a huge issue for us in terms of just our intelligence, our technology, because we are good, but we are still somehow behind because they're better. They're scrappier. They
are scrappier, and that's exactly
scrappier.
right.
Yeah, the bottom line is they are scrappier.
You know what? We're too polished. We show up
right.
in our suits and ties, and these guys are just scrappy. But we should have known this from the Taliban.
That's right.
You know, we've known about this for a while now, that these guys are scrappy. They will they'll have meetings on little dirt roads somewhere, or in a restaurant, or just anywhere, but they'll get their business done in ways that we're not accustomed to doing. But that's why I brought up the mob. The way they used to do stuff in the old days, they'd go with somebody and just go for a walk down the street and take care of business. We have to find out what these guys are doing. So very concerning. I know there's a lot of parents out there who are concerned. They're not sure. I have friends actually who are saying, that's it, I'm not going to Europe this summer. They're concerned. They're worried about what's going on over there.
I think they are concerned, and I think at least from sort of a psychological point of view, you know, I think you have to look at your kids and you have to see where they are age appropriately. I think that, you know, one of the things you want to do is not keep the TV on all the time on CNN,
Smart.
MSNBC, Fox TV, and just keep that going all the time, because that can be scary, especially for kids who can't quite understand everything. You know, I think the second thing that you do is, again, age appropriately, but if you do have older children, you sit down and you talk to them, but you don't give them all the gory details. You just explain to them very simply the basic story so that they understand what's going on. You know, I don't think you want to hide it, because everyone's going to be hearing about it, and you're going to go to school and other kids are going to say things, so you want to inform them, but you want to inform them with a basic story. And I think that you've got to make sure that, again, that you are aware of your surroundings, but it's a fine line, because you don't want to scare your kids.
You know, so we were talking about how this is such a different election year.
Right.
It really is, from what I can ever remember. And our economy, you know, people are concerned about their jobs. They're looking, you're right, to someone on the outside to maybe help them, to fix things. And I know sometimes you work with teenagers, very often teens who are coming out of high school.
That's right.
They can't find their way. They are not sure what to do, what the job market is. Can you tell us a little bit about what do you do and how do you help those kids?
Many times when these kids are having difficulties, there's a program that we're working on that's not quite launched yet, but it is called Launch, and it's helping these kids find their way. And one of the most important things is to help them to find their motivation. What is it that you're interested in? So it's a program that actually works with kids to find what they're interested in, helps to place them in internships, paid internships, helps them to understand how to build businesses with business plans, and then ultimately, if they do want to go to college, we'll assist them in the college application process as well.
So you're working with teenagers who haven't even gone to college yet, or you're just trying to help them figure out if they even want to go to college? Because isn't that something schools should be doing?
Well, you know what? There's a lot of different ways now, I think, that these kids end up either going to college or not going to college. You know, some of these kids don't complete high school. For a number of different reasons. There could be substance issues, there could be mood issues. They're not completing high school, so they're completing high school in a different way. Some have gone to college and they've come back for any numerous number of reasons. And some just don't know where they want to go. So they're going to a junior college, they're living at home, they're feeling isolated. They don't know what to do. All their friends are gone to college. They don't have a community. So this is a lot about creating a community. Peer support community, I think, can help a lot of people when they're a little lost. You know, hearing other people's stories, hearing other people's vulnerabilities, relating to that. So a part of all of this also includes individual therapy, family therapy, to help the unit, whether it's the family unit or the community unit, do things together so that people can feel productive.
I think more than ever, though, it's important, even if they go to a community college and they have no idea what they want to do, at least one course, two courses, something can just lead to an interest, don't you think? Or even a tech school or something.
Yes.
Acting school. I mean, but to just, are you saying some kids are just getting out of school and they're so confused they don't know what to do, and then they just fall on depression? And
I think that there's a lot of that. I think that it's not just with high school kids. I think there's a lot of older people, adults, you know, and you and I talk about it as well, you know, women, people who are going through transitions in life, empty nest syndrome. You've been a caretaker for the last 18 years. All of a sudden, everybody's out of the house. Who am I? What am I doing? I think purpose is important for everybody in their lives, and we're so driven, you know, let's say from the time that you're born up until the time that you're 12 or 13, you just do what you're supposed to do. You're 13, 14, things aren't working for you for a number of reasons. You're 40 or 50 and things aren't quite working for you for a number of different reasons, you know. So being purpose-driven is important for people to be able to be happy, I think, and be productive in the environment, in their environments. But it's not always easy.
And purpose-driven, you have to be careful with that, because very often people think purpose-driven is about the money. And money, of course, is important. You've got to feed yourself, feed your family, and you've got to, put a roof over your head.
Yeah.
But with women in particular, because we talked about that, a lot of times someone will give up their work. I know you gave up your work. I give up mine. And very often a lot of people, they really don't know where to go to figure out what to do next.
That's right.
And we were talking about Sheryl Sandberg.
That's right.
CEO of Facebook.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about her program, Lean In.
So she wrote a book in 2013 called Lean In. And Lean In, the whole purpose of Lean In was to encourage women to grow and support each other. And her mantra is, together we're better. And so the Lean In group helps women and helps different groups. They also include men, if men would like to join. But most of the groups, as far as I understand, are women. And they help people through community, through education, and then through circles. And circles are small groups of women, 8 to 12 groups of women who are in similar stages in their life or have similar goals. And she's found, actually, in her research, it shows that people, women, are more confident and are able to learn and accomplish more in a small group. And so that's what she's encouraging. Right now, she's got more than 27,000 circles in 137 countries around the world.
You and I were talking about starting up a Lean In group, because
That's
almost
right.
anyone can start one up.
Anyone
correct?
can start
but
one
you know
up.
what? Let's go back again, because I always like to go back to figure out, how did we even get into this situation? I think a lot of women that I talk to, a lot of people, they're just insecure even to go to the group in the first place. They feel like they don't look as good, they're not as attractive, they're not going to be, and therefore not going to be listened to and valued. You know, sometimes you can't change people's perceptions. If you go out there and somebody would rather have a 25-year-old, what are you going to do?
That's right.
And you can't change that and demand that the world change. And you must hire somebody twice that age, because it's not going to happen. What you have to do is just find a space where they're comfortable and someone is comfortable in hiring you, or find a particular job or something where you're comfortable, where you fit in.
I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
And I think fear is something that is an obstacle that holds a lot of people back. Right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of what she's talking about on these Lean In circles is, if you're around people and you're surrounding yourself with people with similar goals or in a similar stage, that perhaps we can alleviate some of this fear together in your smaller group, so that, how do you alleviate fear? You alleviate fear by sharing the stories, sharing the vulnerabilities. Oh, they want to hire a 25-year-old, they don't want to hire me. Sharing that this was my experience. How about your experience? And by that, you can gain some confidence, and you can also perhaps gain a different perspective and a different lens into this, instead of, I'm never going to win this because, the 25-year-old is going to take my job, or for whatever it is. So it's a starting point is what I think. And it's starting because peer support is important and conversation is important. And it's a lot better to be conversing with people than be sitting at home alone, sort of just sitting in your own fears.
And to also be a good friend. You and I have called each other
That's
on all
right.
sorts of things,
Yeah.
even just to talk about other friends who are going through a tough time, to listen, because it is difficult. But I also have to say, talking about that 25-year-old, you're never going to be that 25-year-old.
That's right.
So don't even bother.
That's right.
Just move on.
That's right.
We've all had interviews too, right? Where they want somebody who's, it's like, forget it. Just move on. Take somebody who's 35 or 40, right?
That's
Not the 20.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that it's, in addition to it being about community, it's about, supporting your friends, being a good friend, going through, because as you get older, that 25-year-old doesn't quite have the experience and the wisdom that you do perhaps somewhere in your mid-40s or your early 50s. Death, divorce, cancer, unemployment, life happens as you get older. All of those things count. All of those things make you valuable, absolutely, and it's the support of your peers that will help you to feel valued and able to contribute in whatever way that you choose that you want to be able to do that.
It's tough, though, because we do live in such a modern time. And, what's also important is to stay current. I always say to my friends, got to stay current, got to stay fit. Like, you have to stay fit at least. You can't just show up,
That's right.
not having been in the workforce, and just sort of, look your worst. You can't do that either.
No.
You've got to get a little fit and be healthy
Absolutely.
and feel good.
Absolutely.
But even that's difficult, because sometimes you just don't want to get up and do it. You're like, oh, what's the point? But groups like this and friends like that, I just think there needs to be more help for women, because I don't know if there's enough. There's a lot for kids and younger groups and elderly, and we need all that. But I think that in a way, sometimes this can be a forgotten group of people, women in the middle of their lives. We talk about it, but is there really enough help out there? I don't know.
Something to think about. I mean, I don't know. You and I do have a lot of deep talks about this. I think that this is a silent group of people. I think that a lot of people...
It's embarrassment and shame.
Yeah, it's embarrassment and it's a shame. I think a lot of people sit in their homes. They don't feel that they have kept up. So technologically, perhaps they're behind. So maybe it puts them behind a little bit in things that they haven't worked in a long time. So they don't even know if they do want to work. But a lot of them are lonely and they're trying to rebrand themselves and re-identify who they are after their kids are gone. So many women, I think, your identity becomes that of your children. And our job as parents is to let our children go. But all these children are going. Now what? Now what are we going to do? And who are we? And life goes on. And so I think that is an unaddressed group of people who are very competent, I also believe. Incredibly competent women that can do amazing things, but where is the support to be able to do that?
Yeah, it's tough because my second kid's about to go off to college. I'm like, how did that happen? And I said, you could stay in the state. You don't have to go too far away. And he'll just look at me. And I don't ever want to discourage in any way. He's got to do what he's got to do in life.
Right, he should go.
But right, there's so many who are in that position. But, we have someone on the phone right now. Hello?
Hello?
Hi. Gader?
Hi.
Is that how you say your
Gader,
name?
yes.
Oh, gosh. Please say your first and last name for me.
It's Gader Ibrahim.
Okay, wonderful. Now, what she's done, what Gader has done is pretty amazing. She came, I'd like you to actually tell your own story. You actually sort of felt like you were losing your purpose. Why don't you actually give us your story? And you actually went out and did something pretty magnificent. So,
thank you guys for having me on this show.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here. Thanks for being here with us.
I started a little thing called Operation Refugee Child. I went to Athens in November.
But let's just back up. Let me just back up a little bit. You're from Orange County, California, correct? You went to UC Fullerton. You then lived you're married and you got 2 little boys, and you lived out over in Amman, Jordan for a while. And while you were there, you were working with refugees, correct?
I was, correct.
Okay, and then you came back here and you thought, and here's sort of the connection for a woman. Oh gosh, what do I do now, right? And then you thought about it.
Yeah, it was hard. I moved back and I got pregnant with my second child.
Right.
And I just I felt like I lost myself a little bit because I did a lot of refugee work, a lot of volunteer work when I was living overseas. Mm-hmm. And then when I saw that little boy on the news, Island, I'm not sure if you guys...
Yes, absolutely,
of
course.
We remember. Very powerful.
Shore.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That really hit home for me. It was like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that this was happening to human beings. So I honestly just picked up my stuff with a few of my friends, and we went to Athens in November.
Okay.
And I started up this little campaign to raise like $5,000 so I can create these little backpacks for these kids.
And this was in November.
This was in November, yes.
Yeah, pretty amazing what you've done since then and how much money you've raised. That's outstanding.
Yeah, I've raised over $250,000 already.
Right, and you've got at least 15 corporate sponsorships as well. I mean, that's so incredible. And just 4 months that you managed to do this? So you went to Athens, and tell us what you did over there.
There were so many women and children. A lot of the times, I mean, I speak Arabic, so the Syrian people, I was talking to them in Arabic, and I got their story and I got their background.
Right.
Most of the time, these moms come with their children by themselves because the dad already took that journey. He either made it or he didn't make it. You know what I mean? So They end up in Athens, and then they have to walk all the way to Macedonia or wherever they choose to seek asylum. And these kids are miserable, bored, hungry, cold. It was really cold when we went, and now it's even worse. It's freezing. So I just wanted to create something for them to entertain them. I have a 3-year-old. My 3-year-old, if I sit in church for half an hour, he is miserably bored, you know? So imagine these kids. They're cold, they're hungry, they have nothing of their childhood. They left everything behind. They literally have the clothes on their back because their journey from Turkey to Athens is on a dinghy boat, and these, I guess, smugglers tell them to throw all their stuff out, and they can't take anything with them. So they end up on the islands with nothing.
So you go in there, and what do you do? It's just pretty outstanding that this is the brainchild of a woman, of a mom from Orange County, New Jersey. Orange County, California. Sorry, I was born over there, so I'm getting a little mixed up.
That was the East Coast Deborah coming out.
It was a brainchild of a lady in California, and you go over there and do this. But it really also feeds into what I was talking to Genevive about, which is you can find something to do. You know, and look what you did. Great purpose.
Purpose.
Maybe not even the purpose you intended to do.
That's right.
But look what's become of this.
Yeah.
So okay, so you're over
It's
in.
amazing. I couldn't believe how many people have supported this.
Yeah.
And how many corporate sponsors we got. And now we just launched something called the Refugee Hope Box,
Right.
where I want to involve children and families and moms and anyone who wants to get involved, not just donating money or, you know, whatever it is that we need at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to get involved. So we created this Hope Box where people can just donate stuff from their home. It could be used, but obviously not like ruined or anything,
Mm-hmm.
and send us the stuff in the box.
Interesting.
So,
And then
this involves having kids, you know, schools, their communities, their churches, their mosques, their temples, anything that could get everyone involved.
Mm-hmm. So what are you doing next? Now you're back here in California, and you're now working with the second group that you've started, and you know, are you having a lot of success getting schools involved, getting a lot of moms to show up to do this? Like, what are you doing to get more people into this?
We have about 300 boxes already since we launched last week.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Absolutely.
The Hope Boxes.
How are you getting the
So
word out?
They're coming in.
Are you doing a lot of this on social media or just people you know?
Social media, people we know. We're getting our schools involved. Like we're telling people to involve their schools if they have a connection with the school. Their communities, their neighborhoods, like have a packing party, for instance, you know, like buy a bunch of bubbles, buy a bunch of protein bars, socks, underwear, blankets, warm hats, anything that we need at the time. We ask our volunteers to do that.
And what are you doing with these items?
Daily, almost daily, I'm shipping to Greece to our volunteers over there. And then we have a lot of, one of our volunteers who actually formed this organization with me. We're just 5 moms that have done this, who
That's
have
incredible.
literally created it from the bottom up, you know. She just went to Edomini in Greece.
Right.
She couldn't believe what she saw. The kids are, they want the stuff so bad that they were like shaking their van, trying to open the doors, like give us the backpacks, because they knew there was coloring books, there was balloons, there were soccer balls in some of them. So they were all like, please give us some, please give us some. But she said it was the most incredible experience to go out there and actually lend a helping hand, not just passing out backpacks, but to help over there. They have no food, they have no water, they have nothing over there.
So how are they making their way from one place to another? I mean, they're just on foot, no water and food.
Yeah.
Explain to me what that's like, what you see when you're there. Isn't it? I just think it's horrendous.
They're technically trapped right now in Edomini,
Right.
because Macedonia is refusing to let them in. So it turned into a semi-permanent camp right now, and now they're trying to get all the refugees that are there. I believe there's around 14,000 refugees in just that area. They're trying to get them to the northern part of Greece in a permanent camp to send them back to Turkey or send them back out of Greece.
Now,
Right now it's really complicated. It's not as easy as it was in November for them to continue their journey.
Right.
Now they're just, as soon as they come off these boats, they stick them on the ferries and off they go to the camp.
What is this doing, though, to Greece? Is this draining Greece of yet more resources? Because Greece has been in so much trouble.
It really is.
I can't even imagine. So what's going on there? I mean, it's terrific that they're taking them in and that they're there. But
You would be surprised how many Greeks are the ones that are daily volunteering their time.
I believe it.
I mean, most of them, you know, a lot of the Greek economy right now is terrible, and a lot of people don't have jobs anymore. But they're out there, either getting donations from their community. They are donating. They're making food. They're donating clothes. They're donating blankets because it's freezing, and they're sleeping outside. Like these tents that they're sleeping in, they're not like those professional camping tents that people buy here in the States. It's freezing for them, and the Greeks are taking care of them as much as they can.
We are in such a humanitarian crisis.
I was just thinking
We
that.
really are in such a humanitarian crisis. What do you have to say to those folks politically who say, shut the doors, we're not taking anybody in? What do you have to say?
And that's really sad, honestly. Like, I understand, like, some people are not into the whole, I don't want to help anyone outside of the U.S. And that's not my thing. I'm actually helping a human being. It doesn't have to be someone based on their religion or where they're coming from. If my neighbor or anyone in my community needs help, I'm that person helping you.
Well, I was talking to somebody last night, and his dad came over from Europe and escaped the Nazis. And I said, explain to me exactly how this is any different. Even if, your parent was sponsored by an organization to get here, he got here. So how is this really different? Somebody could then have been afraid and said, no, don't let him in. He's a Nazi. Clearly he wasn't.
Yeah.
It's the same in this situation. I mean, granted, we can't take tens of thousands of people, but there has to be a better system than saying shut the doors.
I think that you're right. I think it is a crisis of humanity, and I think it's an incredibly sad time in our world. But it goes back to the beginning of your show, and when you're talking to Dan Lothian and letting all these migrants in, and then what happens? Who among these people is radicalized? And that's what the problem is. So it goes around in a big circle because you're trying to balance the humanity of it all with sort of who inside here is radicalized, what's going to happen. And a little bit of that happened when I think the Germans had let some in, and then they had gone back and identified. And that's why I think that culture of fear, and then how does that juxtapose with humanity? How do we do that? And it's very, very complex.
Maybe create a space where people already are.
It's so heartbreaking.
What do you think about that? You've been there, right there, working in the underbelly of where this is happening. What about creating a space where these people already are and creating a society there? I don't know. I don't really know what the answer is.
It's hard. It's kind of like when the whole crisis of Iraq and Syria, they all went to Jordan. Majority of them went to Jordan. There's like 2 million refugees in Jordan in the Zatari camp. So it's very complicated. It's very hard for just one country to take in so many people.
Of course.
And it takes years to get out, to seek asylum somewhere else. So like in Jordan, they need to go through so many interviews, they have to have like a caseworker technically with them in order for them to get that okay to go to either Canada, the U.S., or wherever their destination is. It's really complicated. I just don't know how Greece would be able to handle that with their own, economy not so great.
So where are many of these families, and mostly it's children and moms, right? It's really not a lot of men. Where do they end up going? Right now they're sort of stuck, and they're doing these long, laborious walks day and night. But where are they ending up? Where are some of these people going?
A lot of them ended up in Germany,
right?
Macedonia. Some were going to Sweden, and then that, I guess, got shut down in December or something like that. A lot went to Paris as well. Wherever their husband or their kids went first, that's where they're going to go.
But
wherever they were able to get the papers.
There's only so much space. And then you've got other countries with so much vast space, but, we can't tell anyone what to do. So, they're there. That's the closest, and that's just where they end up. But so tell me what you're working on next with all this great work you're doing. It's amazing.
Well, next we're planning on another initiative in the camps in Jordan.
Okay, so are you going there?
We are, in July.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about that.
We're planning to distribute around 5,000 backpacks. We're focusing those backpacks on educational materials for the kids that are in the camps. They don't technically have schools. There are semi-schools, done by other refugees or locals that end up going out there and, trying to teach them and stuff. So I wanted to fill these backpacks with educational material, whether it's books in Arabic and English, notebooks, flashcards. We're still working on exactly what we're going to put in it, but we're hoping with educational material. We're also trying to work with refugees who are resettling in California. We want to fill backpacks for them with everything they need for their school to start them off right.
Where are they coming to?
Empower them.
Where are they coming? Where are these groups coming to in California? The refugees.
We found 2 families in Orange County close to my house. They came through Mariners Church, and they actually came from Jordan.
So what? So they were. Go ahead.
Sorry. So they were in Jordan for 3 years, and then they got their visa basically to come out here.
Okay. So
so Mariners Church housed them and helped them get their house situation. They helped the dad and the mom get a job, and then I wanted to put like educational stuff for their school. that they needed.
Boy, talking about winning the lottery, those people. To actually come here to California, be sponsored by the church, and get this kind of assistance, that is just incredible.
It's amazing what people are doing for other human beings.
I think it's beautiful. Now, are you accepting other volunteers to go with you? You know, if people want to reach out and help, what can they do? What's your website?
We are, actually.
Okay, go ahead.
They can go on our website.
Okay, what is that?
Which is www.operationrefugeechild.org.
operationrefugeechild.org. Don't forget the .org, because a lot of people put .com and stuff like that. It's .org.
Yeah, .org.
How many?
They can apply there.
Okay. How many volunteers are you looking for? I mean, and when are you going? I actually think it's a very interesting trip to make.
Absolutely.
One of our volunteers just got back yesterday. We have another volunteer leaving next week with his wife. They're leaving from New York. I just shipped off 4 large suitcases filled with the backpacks and the warm hats and gloves and everything that a kid would need right now, because it's still cold over there. And then we have a few more volunteers leaving in April.
Okay, and you said you're going over in July. And if someone wants
to Jordan, yeah.
Right. And if people want to go over there, what will they be doing? They're going to be, I guess, dispersing of these things. They're going to be working with the refugees. Are they going to be teaching kids? I mean, what do you do?
We pass out the backpacks.
Yeah.
We help where help is needed. The last trip they took to Lesbos, the island where the refugees are coming in on the boats, and our group our volunteers did a boat rescue. Like, so you stay at night and you have to wait for like some kind of signal from the dinghy boat for them to, because the waters are rough right now. That's how a lot of them are dying and not surviving the waters. The dinghy boat ends up flipping over, and there's so many babies on there. And so they flash their light, and then the rescue team goes and rescues them.
The work you're doing is so incredible. I actually want to reach out to you, and I'm going to encourage people listening.
Absolutely.
It is wonderful to volunteer and to donate your time and your services. But if anyone can actually go and they have the time and the resources to go and do this, I think I'm going to challenge people to try and go and actually go a step further and go and actually do a hands-on sort of a trip, don't you think? Because it's so life-changing, and we really get
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially we live in an area where, I mean, people they're in a bubble a little bit,
Oh, of course we are.
And I was in that bubble a little bit until I moved overseas.
Right.
But dealing with the refugee crisis in Athens is a different ballgame than dealing with the refugees in Jordan. It changed my life. Like, I cannot explain, it changed my life. It's the saddest thing, and hearing their stories and how their journey to get there is really, really sad. It's really hard.
But just, circling back to what we were talking about with women feeling displaced and people feeling displaced and teenagers feeling displaced.
Absolutely.
I always say this to my own kids.
Yes.
Please just get out and do one thing for somebody.
That's right.
The other day I was telling that to my son. He didn't really want to hear it. And I said, you're not feeling great? Go do something for somebody. Or go do something for an animal. Just go out and do something. Go to a shelter and walk their dogs. Just go do something. And that multiplies, because it gets in your spirit and in your heart. And if you can step a little away from yourself, even just a little bit, I think it just fills you up, and then you want to do more. And I know globally this is what we need, and I'm really supporting this. I'm going to get in touch with you because I want to hear more about that, okay?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Gader, thank you so much for being on our show. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I am truly inspired. My son, as you know, he went to Sri Lanka last year.
Yes.
There were no refugees, but he was working with really, really impoverished kids and teaching them English. And this was not a kid program either. He just wanted to go there and do something. And he has that in his heart. And, I've learned a lot just from being around him. But I really, really believe we are in such a crisis. Just look what's going on, as Dan said, and we were, to circle back.
I agree.
What's going on internationally. But if people can just go out and do something, what Gader is doing is incredible.
I think that if everybody can go out and do one nice thing for someone else every day, the world would be a lot better place.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you work with teenagers, is that one of the things that you kind of encourage them to do?
Yes, a big part of what we do is community service. And so there are a lot of networks in community service through the Boys and Girls Clubs, through a lot of these pet shelters, all different kinds of places.
Pets are such a great way to start.
Pets are great.
Right? If you're not comfortable working with, talking to kids, adults, whatever, go volunteer with the pets. They're not going to talk back, but they're going to feel your energy. You know?
Yeah, and I think that I think what you say is right. You know, we need to get out of ourselves and the bubbles that we live in, and we need to give. And if you can give in service, I think that it can give you a bigger perspective above and beyond who you are and what your issues are. So service is absolutely important and integral, I think, into each of us growing.
Yeah, Genevive Mao, individual and family therapist, psychotherapist. Thanks a lot for being here today.
Thank you,
It was
Deborah.
really great. You're
Always
coming
nice to
back.
see
You're
you.
coming back again.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
I'm
we
here.
love having you on. You're wonderful. All right, everybody, that was a really, really fun, important, and wonderful edition of Kobylt and Friends. Thanks so much for being here, and we will see you next week.